We begin with a feeling that is almost universal, a quiet promise we make to ourselves. This time, it will be different. This partner, this connection, feels new and full of potential, a departure from the patterns of the past. We invest our hopes, our time, and our emotional energy into this new beginning. Then, months or even years later, a moment of unsettling clarity arrives. It might happen during a minor disagreement, a moment of vulnerability, or in the way they offer comfort. We look at the person across from us, and with a sinking feeling, we recognize a familiar dynamic. We hear the dismissive tone of our father in their logic, or we feel the anxious love of our mother in their concern. We realize, with a shock, that we are in the same relationship we have always been in, just with a different person. We are dating a parent again. This experience is not a personal failing, nor is it a coincidence. It is the work of a powerful, invisible force within our psyche. It is a script, written in the earliest days of our lives, that our unconscious mind is determined to play out over and over again. Today, we are not just going to read that script. We are going to understand who wrote it, why it has such power over us, and how we can finally become its editor, not just its lead actor. Welcome to the unconscious casting call that is our love life. Imagine for a moment that our psyche is a film director. This director has one story it is obsessed with telling, a story written in childhood. For the starring role of our romantic partner, the director holds a casting call. Countless candidates appear, each with unique qualities.
Yet, the director consistently casts the actor who can best play a very specific part, the part of a primary caregiver. This is not a conscious choice. The director operates from the deep, hidden parts of our mind, driven by a principle Sigmund Freud identified over a century ago, the repetition compulsion. Repetition compulsion is the unconscious tendency to reenact early emotional scenarios, especially those that were difficult, painful, or unresolved. It is our mind's paradoxical attempt to find a different ending. The unconscious logic is deceptively simple. If I can recreate this original dynamic with a new person, perhaps this time I can fix it. This time I can win the approval of a critical parent by finding a critical partner and making them happy. This time I can finally make an emotionally distant parent present by choosing an unavailable partner and earning their love. The psyche is not seeking happiness, it is seeking mastery. It wants to go back to the scene of the original wound and emerge victorious. The problem is, we are not casting a new actor to play a new role. We are casting an actor who is already perfect for the original role, ensuring the script plays out exactly as it did before. This is why our relationships can feel like a recurring dream, one we cannot seem to wake from. We are caught in a loop, not of bad luck, but of a profound and deeply human psychological pattern. Understanding this pattern is the first step toward breaking it. It requires us to turn our attention away from our partners and toward the original script itself, to the blueprint that was created long before we ever went on our first date. To understand the blueprint, we must travel back to the first theater of our emotional lives, our family. It is here, in the complex web of our earliest attachments, that the template for our future relationships was forged.
The concepts of Freud, like the Oedipus and Electra complexes, while often sensationalized, offer a powerful lens for understanding this process. We can set aside the literal interpretations and see these ideas as a map of our first triangular relationship, the child and their two parents. This is where we first learn about love, desire, rivalry, connection, and loss. We observe the dynamic between our caregivers. We internalize how they show affection, handle conflict, and express intimacy. This becomes our baseline understanding of what a partnership looks like. Simultaneously, we form a unique and powerful bond with each caregiver. We learn what we must do to receive love, attention, and security from them. A child whose parent is warm and consistently available learns that love is safe and reliable. A child whose parent is unpredictable or critical learns that love is something to be earned, something that is conditional and precarious. This early dynamic does not just teach us about love, it writes the very character descriptions for our future partners. We are unconsciously drawn to people who fit this established mold because they feel familiar. This familiarity is often mistaken for intense chemistry or the feeling of finding a soulmate. Our unconscious mind recognizes a key player for its drama and signals this with a powerful feeling of rightness, of coming home. Modern psychology has built upon these foundational ideas, giving us even clearer maps. Imago theory, for instance, suggests that we are unconsciously searching for a partner who is an imago, a composite image of the positive and negative traits of our primary caregivers. The goal of the psyche, according to this theory, is to heal childhood wounds. We subconsciously believe that if we can get a person who resembles our caregiver to love us in the way we always wanted, we can retroactively repair the original hurt.
If we had a parent who was loving but emotionally shut down, we might find ourselves irresistibly drawn to partners who are kind but walled off, embarking on a lifelong project to open them up, hoping to finally feel the complete love we craved as a child. Attachment theory provides another crucial piece of the puzzle. It outlines how our first bonds create a blueprint for how we behave in adult relationships. If our caregivers were sensitive and responsive, we develop a secure attachment style, believing that we are worthy of love and that others can be trusted to provide it. If our caregivers were inconsistent, we might develop an anxious attachment style, constantly seeking reassurance and fearing abandonment. If they were dismissive or rejecting, we might develop an avoidant attachment style, valuing independence above all and keeping partners at a distance to avoid the pain of being let down. These styles are not just personality quirks, they are entire strategies for navigating intimacy, written by our earliest experiences. A person with an anxious attachment style might find the emotional distance of an avoidant partner both terrifying and deeply familiar, recreating a dynamic of longing and pursuit that defined their childhood quest for connection. The blueprint is therefore a complex document, a blend of Freudian dynamics, Imago images, and attachment styles. It is the unconscious filter through which we see all potential partners, predisposing us to choose the familiar over the healthy, the known over the new. Recognizing the existence of this blueprint is the most critical step. It allows us to see that our attractions are not random, they are data. They are clues pointing back to the original story that is still running our lives.
But this raises a difficult question. If these patterns so often lead to pain, why do we keep choosing them? Why does the brain, an organ designed for survival, guide us toward dynamics that cause us to suffer? The answer lies in a fundamental principle of neuroscience. The brain prefers predictability over happiness. The primary job of our brain is to keep us safe, and it does this by creating models of the world to predict what will happen next. An environment that is predictable, even if it is painful, is perceived as safer than an environment that is unknown. The pain we know is less threatening than the joy we do not. Let us consider a concrete scenario to make this clear. We can imagine a man named Mark. The mother of Mark was a source of great love and affection in his life, but she was also highly anxious and controlling. She worried constantly about his safety, his choices, and his future. Her love was intertwined with a sense of management and a subtle message that he was not capable of navigating the world on his own. As a child, Mark learned that this intense, worried focus was what love felt like. The feeling of being managed was synonymous with the feeling of being cared for. Now, as an adult, Mark finds himself in a series of relationships with partners who are initially very caring and attentive. This attentiveness feels wonderful, like coming home.
However, over time, this care consistently curdles into possessiveness and jealousy. His partners begin to question where he is going, scrutinize his friendships, and try to control his decisions. Consciously, Mark feels suffocated and unhappy. He does not understand why he keeps attracting people like this. But unconsciously, his brain has followed the blueprint perfectly. The initial intensity of the attention from his partners matched his internal template for love. The familiar feeling of being managed felt, on a deep level, like security. His brain chose the predictable pattern. It chose the familiar emotional landscape of his childhood, even though that landscape was filled with the thorns of control. This is the science of familiar pain. That powerful, immediate click we feel with someone, the sense that we have known them forever, can sometimes be the biggest red flag. It may not be a sign of soul-level recognition, but rather a signal from our nervous system that we have found someone who will allow us to replay a core, unresolved dynamic. The comfort we feel is the comfort of knowing our lines, of stepping into a role we have played our entire lives. The tragedy is that we also know how the play ends. To break the cycle, we must be willing to tolerate the discomfort of the unfamiliar. We must learn to distinguish between the jolt of familiar dysfunction and the quiet, slow burn of genuine, healthy connection.
The latter may not feel as exciting at first, precisely because it does not activate our old wounds. It is a new script with new lines, and learning them requires conscious effort and a willingness to step into the unknown. The journey from unconscious actor to conscious director begins with a single courageous step, turning on the lights. For most of our lives, the play has been running in the dark. We have been hitting our marks and saying our lines without ever realizing we are on a stage. The process of illumination is one of self-observation without judgment. It is about becoming a curious and compassionate audience to our own lives. This is where we shift from being a victim of our patterns to being a student of them. The most powerful tool for this is the practical checkpoint, a moment of deliberate reflection. We can do this right now. We can pause and take out a piece of paper or open a new document. We will create 2 columns. In the first column, we will write down the 3 most challenging emotional traits of our primary caregivers. This requires honesty and a suspension of blame. We are not indicting our parents. We are simply collecting data. Perhaps a parent was emotionally distant, or prone to anger, or perpetually anxious, or highly critical. We write these traits down as neutrally as possible. Now, in the second column, we will write down the 3 most challenging traits of our past romantic partners. Again, we approach this as a researcher of our own history. What were the core issues that arose in our relationships? Did we struggle with partners who were unavailable, or volatile, or who needed constant reassurance, or who found fault in everything we did? We list these traits. Finally, we draw lines between the 2 columns. We look for the overlap, the echoes, the resonances. The connection might be shockingly direct, a critical father and a string of critical partners. Or it might be more subtle, a parent who was emotionally fragile and needed to be taken care of, and a pattern of choosing partners who are in a perpetual state of crisis. This overlap is the first scene of our unconscious script made visible. Seeing it on paper can be a profound aha moment. It moves the problem from a vague sense of being unlucky in love to a clear, definable pattern. This is not a moment for shame or despair. It is a moment of empowerment. For the first time, we are reading the notes of the director. We are seeing the casting preferences laid bare. This exercise is not about blaming our parents. It is crucial to remember that they were also actors in a play, reading from a script that was handed to them in their own childhoods. This is about recognizing the inheritance of emotional patterns so that we can consciously decide which ones we want to pass on. This is the beginning of agency. Once we have identified the pattern, we can begin to watch for it in real time. When we meet someone new and feel that intense, immediate pull, we can now pause. We can ask ourselves a new set of questions.
Does this person feel familiar because they are genuinely compatible with who I am today? Or do they feel familiar because they fit perfectly into the unresolved drama of my past? Is this feeling of comfort the peace of a safe harbor, or the resignation of a familiar prison? Becoming the director means we no longer have to rush onto the stage. We can sit with the feeling of attraction and dissect it. We can observe our own impulse to perform our old role, whether it is the role of the caretaker, the pleaser, the rescuer, or the rebellious child. This pause, this moment of conscious inquiry, is where our freedom lies. It is the space between impulse and action where we can write a new scene. Armed with the knowledge of our unconscious script, we can begin the delicate and deliberate process of rewriting it. This is not a quick fix or a simple hack. It is a fundamental shift in how we approach relationships and ultimately ourselves. It is the move from reactive choosing to conscious dating. The first strategy in this new approach is to embrace the discomfort of the new. A healthy, secure connection may feel boring or lacking in chemistry to a nervous system conditioned for drama. A partner who is consistent, communicative, and emotionally available might not trigger the intense spark of attraction we are used to. That spark, we now understand, was often the friction of our old wounds being activated. Conscious dating means giving a chance to the connection that feels calm, steady, and perhaps even a little bit slow. It requires us to retrain our bodies to associate peace with safety, rather than associating turmoil with love. We must learn to sit with the quiet and see what grows there. The second strategy is to date with curiosity instead of a goal. Often we enter the dating world with a mission to find the one and finally resolve our loneliness. This goal-oriented pressure can make us blind to red flags and quick to fall into old patterns. Instead, we can approach dating as a form of research. Each interaction is an opportunity to learn more about ourselves. What kind of person am I drawn to? What role do I instinctively start to play? When do I feel anxious? When do I feel safe? By reframing dating as a journey of self-discovery, we take the pressure off and allow for more clarity. We are no longer auditioning for a part. We are observing the entire production. A third crucial strategy is to focus on shared values and compatibility over intense emotional chemistry.
While chemistry is important, the kind of chemistry that is rooted in repetition compulsion is often a misleading indicator of long-term success. Instead, we can consciously look for partners who align with our core values. Do we value honesty, kindness, growth, and mutual respect? Does this person demonstrate those values through their actions, not just their words? Building a relationship on a foundation of shared values creates a much more stable structure than one built on the shifting sands of an unconscious emotional reenactment. Finally, rewriting our script involves healing the original wound within ourselves, rather than seeking a partner to do it for us. If we longed for validation from a critical parent, we must learn to validate ourselves. If we craved security from an inconsistent caregiver, we must learn to create our own inner sense of safety. This is the work of self-parenting. It involves therapy, self-reflection, and developing a compassionate inner voice. When we are no longer unconsciously outsourcing our emotional needs to a partner, we become free to choose someone for who they are, not for the role we need them to play in our childhood drama. This is a gradual process. There will be moments when we slip back into old roles. The pull of the familiar is strong.
But with each conscious choice, with each time we pause and choose a different response, we weaken the old neural pathways and build new ones. We are, in essence, showing our inner director that a new story is possible, a story that ends not in mastery over an old pain, but in the genuine connection and peace we have always deserved. We have journeyed into the deep, often hidden architecture of our hearts. We have seen how the blueprints drawn in our childhood continue to shape the homes we build in our adult relationships. We have explored the powerful, unconscious drive to repeat the past, not out of a desire for pain, but out of a profound and human longing to heal it. The central message is not one of fate or condemnation. It is one of profound hope and agency. We are not doomed to endlessly repeat the scripts we were given. By bringing the unconscious to light, by examining our patterns with curiosity and compassion, we reclaim the power to choose. We can move from being the actor, unknowingly playing a part, to becoming the director of our own lives. We can learn to recognize the difference between the echo of an old wound and the call of a healthy future. The work is not easy, but it is the most important work we can do. It is the journey of becoming the author of our own love story, one conscious choice at a time.